First things first, obviously, sectionals begin tomorrow night. Just overall, I know getting this time of year, the excitement is pretty abundant all the way around for everybody.
Yeah, I think, after the disappointment that was the girls basketball playoffs, where we went a fourth straight season without a single area team getting to the state championship, I think there's some optimism around in the boys' side of things. But at the same time, I think you look at it and you say, man, who is that one top team that you could say has the best shot to represent Northeast Indiana down in Indianapolis? And, I think right now you'd say Blackhawk Christian this point in Class 2A. And I know Central Noble and Connor Artesian may have something to say about that. But when we're looking at favorites, I think you look at Blackhawk Christian and then probably a lot of question marks after that.
Yeah, that being said, why don't we start our discussion then in Class 2A with that down in Bluffton. It's an 8-team sectional we got down there. Obviously, not much firepower, I'd really say, outside of Blackhawk Christian. You like the Braves there in that one?
Yeah, I do significantly. I mean, it's one of those situations where you'd like to make a case for another team, but when you look how complete of a basketball team the Blackhawk Christian is and just how good that they have gotten over the course of the season, it's tough to see anybody really being able to play for 4 quarters with Blackhawk Christian in that field.
Yeah, obviously you've seen what the Braves have been able to do all season. Just talk to me about what you've seen from them all year that makes them so competitive despite losing, what was it, like 81% of their scoring from the last year?
Well, it was a bunch of guys that stepped up that we hadn't seen before. And we said, what are we going to get out of Jay Sefton? And what are we going to get out of Josh First and these guys that hadn't had to be thrust into that situation. And you talk, I'd messaged, Jake Boyer as well. So they're all guys that have stepped in and raised to the level of what Blackhawk Christian needed in order to continue their run. And a lot of people thought, when Caleb moved on and Marcus Davidson and Zane Burke, that, okay, this is where it ends, particularly with Blackhawk Christian being in 2A. But you could argue that, this team has as good of a chance as any in the state to win another championship. And it would be, you could say 3 in 3 years, even though 3 and 4 years for Blackhawk Christian, counting, the COVID year where they could very well have won it. So we could be talking, a 4th consecutive for Blackhawk Christian. I don't get way ahead of things, but the way they've had their guys step up that have waited their time, committed to the program, and waited for that moment to be the guy, it really shows what a program can do when you commit long-term to a program and not try to look for that quick return based on playing time or getting your name in the stat sheet.
That being said, obviously, with a lot of kids who didn't see a whole heck of a lot of playing time last year through the playoffs, outside of Jake Boyer and a little bit from Gage Sefton, and maybe a spot minute here from Lewis Jones, do you think that inexperience comes back to maybe hurt Blackhawk, when you get to a regional or a semi-state, or do you think obviously having a coaching staff like Mark Davidson has put together ultimately kind of helps take some of that pressure off them?
It's always the biggest question with teams is, where is their mind at once you get deeper into the playoffs? And, some of those younger teams were always like, are they going to be able to handle the moment, or are they too naive to even understand how big it is, right? And I think the positive thing for these kids is while they have not maybe been thrust into the spotlight in these big games, they've experienced them, they've been around them, and they know what it takes. So I think in that respect, these guys have been in a lot of big games and a lot of tough environments and seen their team excel. Maybe not they're not directly responsible for it, but I think Blackhawk Christian has played the schedule that it needed to do to get ready for some of the bigger games it's going to face later in the tournament.
Perfect. All right, we'll stay with Class 2A and we move our way over to Westview, sectional 35 there up in Westview with Busco, Central Noble, Fairfield, Eastside, Westview, and Prairie Heights. That one probably one of my favorites to look at in any class regardless right now. just with the firepower you're seeing from Central Noble, East Side, and then obviously Fairfield is really no slouch this season either.
Well, I think all of us anticipate seeing that East Side Central Noble round 3 matchup, and at least we're not getting that, on a Tuesday night at 7:00, up at Westview. So the benefit is the ping pong balls bounce the right way. We're going to get that showdown if everything holds on Saturday night for a sectional championship. And both teams are eager, I think, to see each other a third time. East Side, despite beating them, I think everybody is kind of putting an asterisk by that with Connor Arcesian being out most of that game. And East Side wants to prove that it can beat Central Noble with their star on the floor. And the Cougars really want to, get that revenge after losing that game. So I think all eyes are going to be on that matchup, but there's enough talent. You mentioned that Fairfield team that can fill the bucket when it needs to. Maybe some teams in there that can maybe challenge East Side and Central Noble if they're looking ahead, but it's going to be something crazy if we don't get that round 3 matchup on Saturday night.
Yeah, when you look ahead, obviously, like you said, you got to have everything kind of fall into place. That way, Central Noble's got to beat Busco Prairie Heights. East Side's got to beat a combination of Westview, Fairfield, and Freeman. Like you said, you're probably penciling them in there for that championship. When you look ahead to Saturday, what do you think the biggest X factor difference maker is going to be? Obviously, Connor Arcesian's probably got to be the focal point there.
Well, I think maybe the pressure is on Central Noble in that game, despite what happened the previous game with East Side getting the better of them, because I think Central Noble's that team that a lot of people put up at the top of the NECC, and East Side decided they were going to crash that party, at least one out of the 2 games. So I think it's Central Noble's ability offensively to figure out East Side's defense. And, even before Connor Arcesian went out of that game, Central Noble's having all sorts of trouble in scoring the basketball. So even with Connor out there, East Side was doing a tremendous job in man defense to really bottle him up. So I think that's the key if we see that matchup on Saturday night is what do the Cougars have offensively that's going to be different from maybe the first 2 times, because, if that game stays in the 40s, low 50s, that's where East Side wants to play that game, and that's what gives them the best chance to win.
Yeah, I was going to say, but if we have a situation like we did in the NECC tournament, obviously Connor Arcesian going off for 38 points, there's not much you're going to be able to do in regards to that. You can't let that happen. Yeah, no. So still looking forward to that one. Probably my favorite sectional so far in the area. But we move on to Class 3A now, sectional 23 down at Norwell. You got to think that one's the host's one to take.
Well, you look at it, yeah. It's tough to make a case for any other team. Norwell's ranked number 26 in the Sagan ratings at the end of the season, and the next highest team in this sectional is 116, and that's Oak Hill. But you can't overlook a team like Belmont that beat Norwell. So I think potentially that could be a stepping stone, a tough thing for Norwell if that game happens again. Oak Hill, you like a lot what they do. They're built a lot in the way of Norwell. They're really young. They have some shooters. I just don't know if they've played the schedule that Norwell has, and Norwell handed them right out the gate to start the season. So I think this is Norwell's sectional to lose, but I think if at the very least, Coach Mike McBride has his team's attention out of that Belmont loss from earlier this season that says, hey, there's teams at least good enough in this field that are going to clip you if you guys don't play well.
Yeah, and obviously those games for Norwell there at the end of the season, you get Jay County, who you handle you take care of pretty handily, and then Homestead, who you hang with for a good chunk of that game, ultimately lose by double digits. But you get those 2 teams at the end of the season, you really think that helps beat schedule and everything as you head into this playoffs, no?
Oh, absolutely. And you look at earlier in the season when Norwell was able to go to that Noblesville tournament that really challenged them, and Coach McBride kind of points to that as some of the reasons why they were able to get some late season wins and stuff is preparing them for that. So, Coach Mike McBride built a schedule that was preparing his team for these next few weeks, because he wants to be able to tell his team to say, hey, we're hosting this sectional. The crowd's going to be in our favor, and we haven't played any team in this sectional that's as good as some of the squads we've already played. And so I think he's going to use that as motivation, and that's why Norwell, I feel, is the heavy favorite.
Perfect. All right. We move on to sectional 22 up at Garrett. Obviously, another good one there. 17 sectional. The defending 3A state runner-ups in Leo, obviously kicking things off with the Angola winner of that one goes on to Lures, Woodland, Dwenger, Concordia, and Garrett all the rest of the way. Talk to me about this one. Another fun one. If it's going to be like what we saw the other night between Woodland and Leo, with Woodland winning on that buzzer beater.
Yeah, I don't know what direction to go. I mean, you look at this and you say this is Leo's sectional, but they lose to Woodland in the last weekend of the regular season, and that throws everything into flux. And you throw Bishop Dwenger in there. They've beaten teams like Blackhawk Christian, but they've also lost to Lures. They've lost to Concordia. They've lost as well to Leo. They were all close games, right? And you look at Concordia that continues to be under the radar despite being in the mix in the SAC late in the season. So this one, I think could go a lot of different ways. All eyes, I think, on Wednesday night at Woodland Bishop Dwenger, because both of those teams playing very, very good basketball. And then, Leo, I think you like their path because they get to they play Angola first and then they get Bishop Lures. So you have to like Leo's path to the final. And that's why they're probably the favorite here, because they have the easier path as opposed to Woodland, Bishop Dwenger, and Concordia, because only one of those three is going to be able to get to the final. So the Lions have the edge, but by no means can you count any of probably four different teams out here.
I was going to say the bottom half of that bracket is absolutely stacked. Like you mentioned, obviously, Concordia in the way of Johnny Washington's played the time this year. Obviously, no seniors on that roster. It's scary to think about for next year. But as of right now, they're still obviously a very talented team. If they get hot, they can shoot the ball with some of the best of them in Woodland too. I'm going to put you under the limelight here. Who do you pick coming out of this one as Justin Kenny's favorite?
I'm going with the Leo Lions. I feel like, if anything, the message that you could take out of last week's loss to Woodland is we need to refocus and find that energy that's going to propel us to another deep postseason run. Some of the usual suspects were gone from last year's state run, guys like Blake Davidson, but Coach Cogdell has had some guys step up in that leadership role. It's up to those guys to take what happened last week and use it as fuel for this week in what could be a very competitive sectional, particularly when we get later in the week.
Perfect. Appreciate that. We'll move on up to sectional 21 up at Wawasee. And unfortunately for our area teams, Tippy Valley, West Noble, Wawasee, and Lakeland, it looks like this thing is going to be all Northwood all weekend long.
I have a hard time seeing anybody within 15 points in Northwood at this point, to be honest. I mean, Tippy Valley with double-digit wins and West Noble double-digit wins, but unfortunately they have to play each other, and the winner gets Northwood on Friday night. So, yeah, I like Northwood here by a sizable margin.
Yeah, I was going to say the unfortunate thing is, like you said, they get each other in that first round, and then Northwood's got two sub-500 teams there in the championship. If they were to get to that point, so yeah, like you said, Northwood probably the clear favorite in that one. We'll make our way over to Class 4A now, Sectional 6. Good one down at Huntington North. I think going to be another fun one here. Homestead Huntington North to start things out tomorrow night, as well as Southside Columbia City. Kind of give me your thoughts on this section.
Well, I look at Huntington North and Homestead as a good matchup, and it very well could be, but Huntington North limping to the finish line of the regular season. And I think that creates some concerns with the Vikings and just how competitive with Homestead they can be. It's seemingly every year these two teams play in the postseason. More often than not, it's a good game. Huntington North finally got over the hump a couple of years ago over Homestead. And when we saw this draw, we were saying, wow, this is going to be a good matchup. But can Huntington North close the door on what was a rough finish to the regular season and refocus when it faces the Spartans? I think that's the big question going into tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. It's a tough play, 6 o'clock, and maybe that plays to Huntington North's advantage, hosting that game, not having to go very far, obviously, to play, and maybe they can catch Homestead off guard. But you have to look at Huntington North and how they turn that page, and a Southside team that's been highly competitive, a Columbia City team that's been highly competitive, that's snuck under the radar from a lot of people. And so I don't think this is a quick Homestead wins, let's move on type conversation. I think there's some bumps in the road. New Haven can hang if Jakar Williams and Darion Brooks stay out of foul trouble. So this could be a very interesting sectional, maybe more so than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially if you look at Homestead, let's say, Fletcher gets hot like he did the other night against the Norwell and they take down Huntington North pretty easy. Obviously, New Haven's sitting there waiting with a day off. And, the Bulldogs are hungry, especially given last year, the way that last year ended for them. And just, like you said, if they play well, if Darion and Jakar can stay out of foul trouble, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, say. But like Columbia City on that bottom side, too, another team, like you said, stuck under the radar. Who do you like to get to the championship there on Saturday, and who do you possibly like to come out on top?
I mean, I like Southside really. I think if Columbia City can slow that game down tomorrow night and not turn it into a track meet, they got a chance to beat South. But I really like South. Taking Snyder down to the end late last week. A further indicator that I think this team is being under the misjudged under the radar, and they got. We talked so much about that 1-2 scoring punch for Snyder, but Southside probably has that second best 1-2 punch in the entire area. Those guys are on. It's huge for them. So I'm kind of looking at a Homestead Southside final on Saturday night. And, I think if anything we've learned from Homestead is they finally are able to get that complementary scoring. And we were able to see that Homestead Concordia without Fletch. And we said, man, this is an opportunity for Concordia. But instead, those ancillary guys stepped up, led the team, and got that win in convincing fashion. I think at least showed that what Homestead didn't have at the beginning of the year. There was a lot of standing around watching Fletcher Lawyer. Those guys are capable of contributing in a consistent manner. And that, I think, is the big key for Homestead, not just to win this sectional, but to advance deep in the 4A tournament.
I was going to say, do you think, I was going to mention that Concordia game as well. Do you think that Concordia game was ultimately a really, really good thing for that Homestead team? Obviously, you don't want to see a guy like Fletcher Lawyer sitting out of any games, but do you think that game was ultimately a really good thing for him, having Fletcher having to sit and seeing if you guys can make that step, and maybe having Fletcher sit there and say and look and see, hey, there's other dudes that can step up and make these plays besides me.
And I think the best thing was for those players that played in that game, because you kind of fall into that, oh, Fletcher's going to handle it, or we're going to stand and watch Fletch and let him do his thing, or, he's going to handle it, if thrust them into the spotlight. They had to make plays against a good Concordia team, and they were able to. And I think if anything, it gives them that self-confidence that, we can be those guys, we can make some plays, we can make some open shots. It can't just be Fletcher Lawyer all the time. And I think, if anything, those guys got some confidence in themselves. And I think that's going to help Homestead now here as we enter the postseason.
One more note about Homestead. Obviously, Fletcher probably in the race for, Mr. Basketball contention. He's got 2,000 points between his years here at Homestead and years up in Michigan. 1,200 plus points in just 2 years here at Homestead. Unbelievable to think about. What solidifies Fletcher Lawyer as Indiana Mr. Basketball this year, do you think? What has to happen for him to go into that later on this year?
Well, leading your team to a state championship game appearance is one thing. You need to be eyes on when you get deep into the tournament, and you make some plays as well. So those media members, those voters that don't get to see Fletcher each and every night like we do, they need to see Fletcher at his best. And I think that's going to help him. Deep run helps. And also, just being clutch, being what Fletcher Lawyer is and being that leader as well. So I think first and foremost, Homestead needs to make a deep run.
Perfect. Appreciate you, Justin. We'll move our way up to sectional 5 up into DeKalb. Obviously, last time this one was up there, Northrop was there with Sidney Curry, I believe. That was the year that they won that one. This year, you've got Snyder, Northside, DeKalb, Carroll, East Noble, and Northrop. First day matchups, we got Snyder, Northside, East Noble, Northrop. The East Noble, Northrop one, I think, is a better matchup than a lot of people think. That first one, though, I think it's a little one-sided in terms of Snyder taking that one. Northside kind of limping to the finish line here, given everything that's happened to them late in the season.
Yeah, Northside missing 3 guys. I mean, they're playing shorthanded. Even getting Bronte Johnson back, it's too much. And I think even within that program, I think it's a team most definitely limping to the finish line of the season, mentally and in terms of the guys that are available. So Northside was able to beat Snyder by 21 the first time around. I could very well see that score flipped this time around in Snyder's favor. And you do wonder where Northrop is, the other side of that thing, and they have to play a player down for the rest of the year. East Noble went through the grind of the NE8, and I think is not a team that you can overlook. DeKalb with Marty Beasley, if you take the Barons for granted, they're going to beat you. And even Carroll, I'm not saying they can win this sectional, but the winner of East Noble Northrop better watch it. Carroll knocking off, getting a big win last week that kind of opened some eyes. And they're playing some really good basketball. Played Warsaw tough in the final game of the regular season. So if anything, Ryan Abbott's team playing their best basketball of the year, which is what you want to do March, and they're doing that. So I think it goes back to Snyder. They're the favorite here in this sectional. But for the Panthers, they need to find consistency. We're 3 months into the season, and I don't think Snyder still has found consistency from one game to another. So can they play 3 really solid basketball games? This is a team that's won upwards of 20 games on the year, but they've lost by 40 to Lawrence North. They've lost to an undefeated Monroe team at home. Where is Snyder at? Southside, that's a team that they probably shouldn't be in the final seconds needing a bucket to win. So Snyder was probably okay to get by in this sectional, but you worry about regional Saturday in terms of consistency with them.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you look at the sectional, I think Snyder's had matchups with every single team in the sectional. I think the only one that they didn't beat was Northside. What does Snyder have to do outside of Carson Jenkins and Nathan Lambert, being the usual selves, to go out there and get 3 good W's?
I think if you turn the game into a track meet with Snyder, it plays into their advantage. I think what you want to do, and how we've seen teams like DeKalb and East Noble able to frustrate the teams of the SAC in the sectional over the years, is slowing them down, make them execute in the half court, and really prevent them from running transition and getting easy buckets. And I think if you can do that, then you have a fighting chance against them. So I expect to see that a lot out of East Noble when they play Northrop the first round, and I can see that out of DeKalb playing a Snyder or Northside in that first round or in the semifinal on Friday. So I think for Snyder is the faster you can run, the better. And if you're East Noble, DeKalb, you want to make possessions at a premium. So we'll see if they can make Snyder play that game, because I think that's your shot. You don't have enough offensive firepower to go up with Snyder running and gunning. So you need to be able to slow that game down.
Last area-ish sectional for us. Just one area team in this one, that would be the Elkhart sectional up in sectional 4 with Warsaw. Tough one for the Tigers right out of the gates with a 20-2 Penn team.
Yeah, congratulations, Warsaw. Even a pretty solid team in the Northern Lakes, and you got to play Penn. But congratulations to Warsaw. A very good season for them. And unfortunately, the ping pong balls didn't bounce the right way for you. But I think this is a game in which Warsaw can hang around. If they can string together some defensive stops, make some shots early, make Penn, maybe think about it a little bit too much. The closer you can stay into it, things can happen late. So I wouldn't count it out for Warsaw, but man, they got a tough get right out the gate.
Yes, they do. Skipped over 1 and 3A. I totally forgot about this one. Sectional 24 down at Newcastle. Good Jay County team that we saw, where I'm not quite sure, honestly, what to make out of them at some points. You see them come up here and play in Norwell, and they get their butts kicked, but they roll through the IHSAA, which, let's be real, has been kind of underwhelming at points this year, outside of some of the other teams like Woodland and a couple other teams occasionally. But what do you like about their chances down in that sectional 24 down at Newcastle? Obviously, Newcastle, very good team. A couple other above 500 teams on there as well.
Well, you hit on it with Jay County, is just how good are they? Because let's be honest, they're in a weak conference. I mean, other than Woodland, there's a lot of teams that are not very good in the ACAC. And that's not a knock on them. It's just, look at the records. It's just not there. So, when we talk about overall records and what that means, you look at Newcastle and you go, okay, that's an established, record. They played some tough teams, tough league. And then you look at Jay County and you say, okay, the league was down. And then you look at some of their out-of-conference matchups, and they got smacked around against some of the better teams in our area. So those are the warning signs for Jay County, and having to go down to the field house and play Newcastle right away in their home confines is a tough assignment. And without Jay County looked against solid foes like Newcastle is, you have to have your doubts in whether the Patriots can go down there and get a win.
Thank you very much for swinging on by. A couple more things for obviously. Unfortunately for us, no sectionals in Allen County this year. So a little bit of driving. If anyone wants to go check out any of those, give me one storyline you're looking forward to most here, though, as sectionals get started tomorrow.
Well, I think, this year it's been unique in this area in that while we looked at Homestead and say, okay, that's the number one team, Snyder beats them. And I think there was a lot of this team beat this team that lost to this team that lost to this team. It was very difficult to figure out the hierarchy of this area. And I still think we have questions going into the postseason. Is this a down year in the area? Do we not have any top teams? And I know Homestead's ranked number 3 in the IBCA poll. I get it. But, are we down around the area? Or is it a case of we just beat up on each other in the regular season and then we see a couple teams emerge in the postseason? So that's kind of what I want to see. I don't think we'll get a lot of answers to those questions this week. But when we go into regional Saturday, that's really where we're going to find out whether these teams are for real or not. But, there's always some surprises in sectional week. It sounds like we at least won't have a snowstorm of some sort this week because we always seem to get games and schedules messed up because of the snow. So we'll get this in with no snow on the ground, and we'll see who emerges with some trophies on Saturday night.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll thank our meteorologist for that one for the no snow this week. I think that's 4 Thursdays in a row that we've had snow, so this will be a nice little reprieve from that. Give me one Justin Kenny hot take as we get ready for week 2.
Ooh, hot take. I am going to say, man, this is tough. Put me on the spot. I think there's one of the above with Homestead, Norwell, Snyder, and Leo that does not win a sectional title. One of those 4. I don't know which of the 4 it's going to be. I'm not making any predictions. I'm just saying I don't think all 4 of those win sectional titles.